Okay, a quick little note, since we're talking about tools for reloading these black powder paper patch rounds for the 45-110. Highly recommend Kenny Wasserburger's book. I mentioned him many times in my video. This is more for someone who is already an avid reloader, understands basic reloading principles and things of that nature. This book is exactly what it says it is. This is the beginner's guide. Randolph Wright. You can get this book. Amazon, I think, carries it. I know Buffalo Arms and a few other places has it as well. This is a great book for teaching you everything you need to know about the whole process of reloading and how to get started doing paper patch cartridges and a little bit of bullet casting as well. So just a quick little note on this stuff. But these are the two books that I highly recommend that you get to get yourself started. Obviously, add to your library, collect up everything else. I highly recommend also getting Franklin Mann's book, or The Bullet's Flight from Powder to Target. That one reads like a lab report. So it's dull and boring, but there's a lot of really good information in there.
Yeah, hair's doing good too. There's been some requests since I put up the video for the Quigley rifle of how to load that thing. So in this video, I'm going to go over how I load for the 45-110, or the 45 proper nomenclature would be 45 caliber 2 7/8 inch long case. That's how they were marketed back in the 1860s and 1870s by Sharps, Christian Sharps. But however you want to phrase it, you know, it's not Clippin' Magazine, just, you know, whatever. I'm going to take you through brand new brass from prep to loaded rounds. I'm only going to do 5. I have here, let's see if I can do this without spilling the bullets. Oh, there they went. Here's the brass, and here are my paper patch. I'm going to do another video on how I do paper patch. I'll give you every bit of information I can give you on where I get the materials from, other than primers, powder, and you know, stuff like that, because guess what? We're all hunting for primer and powder right now. So I don't want to get off on too many tangents. I'm going to try and stay focused. I have a tendency to jet off on a tangent. So the first thing I'm going to go over is tools for this. Black powder cartridge reloading requires a slightly different set of tools when it comes to reloading. Obviously you need a press, obviously you need brass, primers, powder, bullets. For paper patch, you're going to need, you better be into bullet casting, because the type of bullets that the predominant competitive shooters use is stuff you cannot buy off the shelf. It doesn't exist. You have to make it. You have to cast it. You have to paper patch them yourself. And the reasons for that is you're tuning a load, is also tuning the diameter of the bullet by wrapping it with different thicknesses of paper. I mean, this is a rabbit hole that'll go as deep as you want to make it. So I am 100% new to this. My Quigley rifle, I've had the rifle since March of 2020, and I've only put 81 rounds down it. Again, my tangents, sorry. So tools, going to need a reloading press, obviously. You're going to need your your basic supplies: bullets, primers, powder, paper for wrapping the bullets, bullet molds, and there's a whole, for casting, that's a whole other topic to get into for bullet casting. There's plenty of stuff out there for guys that do bullet casting. I'm not going to try and reinvent the wheel. There's a whole bunch of people out there showing how to do bullet casting. Iraqi veteran 8888 has a great video on bullet casting. Gone Again has a great video on Sharp's rifle, grease groove, bullet casting. And he was actually the one that I learned from and developed a technique for doing my rounds. So I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm green at this, green as can be, green as hell as at doing these YouTube videos, which is why they suck. But if you'll bear with me and give me some time, I'll try and walk you through what I do, and good, bad, or indifferent. It is what it is. And here's the other thing. I'm only going to tell you a few things that you have to do. Everything else, this is what I'm doing now. And this is not a, well, you better do it this way or else, or you better do it that way or else. I don't care how you do it. I'm learning from someone who's got about 30 years experience shooting these things in competition and a wealth of knowledge. So I'm literally regurgitating what's in Kenny Wasserburger's book. This is going to be a best that I can do for what I have representation of what he goes through in the book. And that's it. I've got a few slight different techniques that I do based on the equipment and based on things that I have. But outside of that, it's nearly identical. You cannot say, oh, it's exactly the same. Well, I'm not Kenny Wasserburger. I can't do anything exactly the same that he does. But I can duplicate, to the best of my ability, what he does. Is that going to show up on paper or downrange? Good luck. That vernier tang sight, that's a challenge for me. The peepers here aren't as good as they used to be, and he shoots through a scope too because he wears glasses as well. So we're gonna have to figure this one out. So next thing is you're gonna need a set of dies, full length sizing dies. Who is this? Forster? No, Lyman. Lyman does make a neck sizing die. This one does squish the neck down tighter than the RCBS. I bought this one because I wanted the die a little closer to a very, very snug slip fit on the neck tension. That's another technique you're going to have to learn. These paper patch bullets don't run any, or shouldn't run any, neck tension. You're pushing a paper jacketed bullet into a brass case. If there's a thousandths or 2,000ths, I haven't tried it, but if there's a thou or 2 thou of neck tension on there, I'm pretty sure you're going to shear the paper off. That's just not a good way to do it. Kenny, Ian Egbert, and a few other guys on the Facebook groups, they all run slip fit. So that's what you want to run. At least that's what, produces the best results downrange. Not my personal experience yet, because I've yet to do it, but their personal experience. And again, I'm just regurgitating what they're doing. So you need a set of dies. You need a press. You're going to have a scale. Actually, we're going to go to the 102 grain. That's the recommended load from Kenny. Do 102 grains of black powder. I have a small supply of Old Eynsford. This is a Goex product that's no longer available since the Goex freaking factory is closed down from fires and being sold. This is 1.5F, and this is the finest granulation you want to use in anything above, say, a 4590. Kenny's book and a few others recommend 1F powder for these bigger cartridges. And even I thought that was a little heavy on the granulation, but hey, it's working for them. I do have a supply of Swiss powder that I picked up, but I also bought the wrong granulation because I was thinking Old Eynsford, so I bought 1.5F Swiss, and I'm going to have to modify my loads to make that stuff work because Swiss is more potent due to the charcoal that they use. Another topic. You're going to need a drop tube. Drop tube. Here we go. Again, don't mind my messy garage. Drop tube. Boop. Delrin end on this that I made. 3/16 stainless steel, 1/2-inch diameter tube. And this little funnel just so happened to fit. This came off of a whiskey flask that I don't carry around my whiskey in a flask. I either drink it out of a glass or straight out of the bottle. So, whatever. Neat little setup. You'll hear you can't use steel near black powder. It's a good safety practice. If you are in a situation where you're going to generate a spark with black powder, you're going to set it off. That being said, don't listen to the bullshit when it comes to static or being around anything that has a potential to discharge static. I've got a report from the Scandia lab. It's some military government contract lab on the potential ignition qualities of black powder and smokeless powder. And it turns out that smokeless powder is actually more sensitive to ignition with static electricity than black powder. Black powder requires heat to set it off, which is why you see why a flintlock works, because when you're firing a flintlock, you're scraping off metal particles from the frizzen that settle into the pan. They're red or yellow hot, and that heat transfers to the black powder and ignites it. Static electricity is a spark, but there's nearly zero heat being conducted into the material because when you're working with electricity, to develop heat, you have to have resistance. And if your materials that you have are highly conductive, you're not going to have a lot of resistance, so you're not going to generate any heat. So the whole static discharge thing is a wives' tale that just, it doesn't mean a damn thing. Do what you want to do, follow manufacturer's recommendations, but again with the tangents, you see where I'm going with this shit. God, I'm going to have to edit a lot of this garbage out. So, there are a few things that you have to do with black powder to be safe. The big thing is zero, and I mean zero, air gaps. You need to have your wad column and your bullet seated firmly against your powder column. And that goes for handgun, that goes for shotgun, that goes for rifle, that goes for front stuffers, muzzle loaders. No air gaps whatsoever in the load. Cap and ball pistols, no air gaps. Okay? That also stands true for black powder substitutes. Your 777, your Pyrex, and whatever the hell else they got out there. I don't use those things anymore. The reason why I don't use them anymore is I had a bad experience with Pyrex with how difficult it was to clean, and I never got back into it. To me, black powder cleans easier. I don't know what everybody's complaining about. It generates a ton of smoke. It stinks to high heaven, but with a little bit of soap and water, it cleans up. So no air gap in your manufacture of ammunition or cap and ball pistol or flintlock percussion gun, whatever. No air gaps. The other thing is have to do okay, is you have to clean your gun at the end of the day. You're not putting this thing away and clean it tomorrow. You really should do a light to relatively thorough cleaning at the range. If it's a cap and ball pistol, I get it. Those things are a little more difficult to clean, or can be a little more difficult to clean with taking them apart and everything. But that thing needs to come out and soak in some warm water and soap the day you get home or the day you're done shooting. I mean, it needs to happen. These things, that goes along with your cartridges, your spent cartridges. You really should take a small bucket, go to Walmart or Target, whatever your grocery store, and get a little half-gallon container with a screw-top lid. Fill that thing up about half three-quarters of the way with water, and put a small squirt of dish soap in there. And as you shoot, throw your cases in there. Let them soak. That will help to dissolve, not necessarily neutralize the fouling, which is, I believe it's slightly acidic. I'd actually have to test that. You want to get that fouling broken down as fast as possible. Get your cartridge cases in a bucket of water as fast as you can, and then take them home and either scrub them by hand. You can run a bore brush into the case to scrub them. Hell, I've heard of guys running them through the dishwasher. I have an ultrasonic cleaner. That seems to be about the best. A little bit of Simple Green. Ultrasonic cleaner, yeah, I speak good. If your ultrasonic cleaner has a capacity of, say, a gallon, throw in about an eighth of a cup, quarter of a cup of Simple Green. That's all you need. And throw your brass in there and let it run for about a half hour. And then you're still going to have to hand clean them, hand scrub them, things like that. And you can set them on a tray and bake them in the oven. Set your oven at 150, 250 degrees, an accurate temperature, and run them through the oven. Let them sit in there for a half hour, 45 minutes. That'll burn off all the water. This stuff will come out spotty and tarnished and whatever. Yeah, clean brass doesn't win matches, okay? Unless it's going to foul and cause an issue, win matches. So your stuff can be spotty and tarnished or whatever. Just it can't interfere with chambering the gun. So those are my have-tos, okay? Now on these big rifles, your 4570, your 4590, 45100, 110, and your monstrous 120, all in the 45 classes, and even your 40 classes and your 50 classes, like your 5090, your 5120s, things of that nature. The vast majority of the shooters use either large pistol primers or they use large rifle primers. And they don't use Magnum primers at all. And the reason for that is the Magnum primer develops too much heat and it will create hard fouling just ahead of the chamber, from what I'm told, because I don't have personal experience with this. I loaded my rounds with large rifle primers because Kenny Wasserburger told me get rid of the Magnums because it will create hard fouling just ahead of the chamber. So I don't want to play with that. I'm taking his advice as gospel, going on that round with it. So without spilling cases, brand new cases. This is a unmarked Norma case. There we go. It just says Norma. I bought these off a gun broker or something like that. They are 45 basic. I don't think these were listed as cylindrical, but these were already trimmed roughly to the 2 7/8. And I don't know if they came as 2 7/8 or if they were the 3 1/8, 3 1/4 The cylindrical brass, I believe is what Norma calls it. These can be cut down to anything from 4570 all the way up to 45110. These are slightly long. They're 2 inches 900, 2 inches 900, 2 inches 910 thousandths overall length. My chamber length in my rifle is 2 inches 885. So they do need to be trimmed down. Another half two, while I'm thinking about it, another half two. For these paper patch bullets and even for grease groovers, you need to have your brass the exact, or as close to exact as you can possibly make as your actual chamber length. And the reason for that is you don't want to have any gap between the end of your case and the beginning of the rifled bore, and have any neck dimension in your chamber where the lead can bump up and fill that area and then has to be swedged back down as it's going out the barrel. That destroys accuracy, from what I'm told. Not personal experience, because I did my stuff as right as possible from the beginning, or at least as right as I can expect it to be. Anyway, there's 5 rounds of brand new brass. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to full length size this, and I'll grab my sizing die, and it's loose. So we're going to set this thing up in the press, and I run this thing all the way up. It doesn't quite feel right. That's okay. So now we're bottomed out against the shell holder, and I like to give it a little bit so that it just cams over. And then we can tighten this. Tighten that. You can use lanolin, you can use RCBS, you can use whatever. This is what I have handy. This is Imperial Sizing Wax. This stuff is great. It's $8 a container. I've been working off of this for about 2 years with my competition shooting F class. I'm about 4,000 rounds downrange with the F class after switching to this stuff, and I've barely sunk into this thing about 1/8 of an inch. So we're full length sizing. We're using a number 14 RCBS shell holder for these guys, because this is a massive bloody case. Right there, that's all I do. Dollop on there, and then I hand lube this guy on there. And then I very carefully, because these will hit, and it's tough, but what you don't want to hear is any squeaking. So there's one, and I still have enough lube on my fingers to make this happen. And it's tough, but no squeaking. If you size this thing and you feel any lack of give in this thing, let me describe that a little better. The case should go into the die with a good firm pressure. This is tough. Keep in mind, you only have to do this once with brand new brass. This is the initial prep. So once this is done, you don't have to do this again. And in reality, if you're doing your loads right, you don't ever have to run your brass through a sizing die ever again. You can just knock the primer out and keep going. Sizing these things, you only have to really full length size them once, because you want them to be fire formed for shooting in the black powder. They don't expand a whole heck of a lot when they're fired. It's not like a smokeless cartridge where the case changes dimensions dramatically, and to get optimal accuracy out of those, you have to full length size and bump the neck back, or bump the shoulder back and squeeze the neck down and the whole shebang. we're running patched to bore, not patched to groove, patched to bore dimension on these bullets. It just needs a slip fit, so we're going to do it that way. Next step is annealing. Get the camera back up here and you can see my ugly face again. You can flame anneal. You can get the all these various propane torch annealers. You can do the socket in the hand drill with a propane torch, whatever. I bought an amp annealer. It's a $1,350 freaking machine. I don't recommend you buy that just to anneal your black powder cartridges. I shoot F-open, I shoot a little bit of PRS, and I reload for some things that have some very, very expensive brass, like a 458 lot, like the 45-110, like a 408 Chi-Tac, 416 Rigby, and my 6XC 3 rifles shooting 6XC cartridges. You know, there's some expensive brass there, so I want to get the best use, best life out of my brass that I possibly can. The problem that I have with the propane annealers is the time it takes to set them up. I could be fiddling around with the flame size and the temp lac and making sure that I'm got the timing right, and I've got the amount of heat that's hitting them right, and everything's, you know, it's got to be right, and that can take, you know, some bloody time. The annealer over there on the bench, and like I said, I'll move the camera, I'll set it up, show you, and I'll even pull the bushing out, and we'll set it down, and we'll go start to finish on that, show you how fast it works. It'll take me longer to talk about it than it will to do it. 5 cases, headed over to the annealer. Let's go. Amp annealer. I did a small video on this thing just to give my personal thoughts on it. It's a great machine. It's bloody expensive, but everything we buy in the reloading room is to save time. And this is why we spend what we spend on, you know, progressive presses. I bought this thing in the early 90s when they were just under $300. Now this is like a $450 frickin' press. And I have tool heads for this puppy like it's going out of style. We buy things to save time. We buy things to save frustration. You can use the original numbers that they give you off of the Amp Annealing website, or you can Aztec a case, get the number that way, and use that number and go that way with it. Checking the clock, I got to go pick up my daughter from school here in about an hour. So first thing we're going to do, reach behind it, turn the thing on, it boots up. I have all my data. I keep all my... Here's a tip for you guys. Start keeping your reloading data in a little folder. Each individual load, each individual cartridge. I used to have a great big thick 4-inch binder that had all my load data in it. And I'd have to drag that frickin' big heavy sucker out here to flip it open so that I could look at one page in there. No. I have now a filing cabinet in my office that has binders like this, little folders like this, that has all my load data in it. So what I do is when I want to reload something, I go into the filing cabinet and I open it up and I grab the one little folder and I come out to the garage and I flip it open and boom, there it is. And I highly recommend that you take a load data chart of some sort, somebody's load data, you know, bullet, cartridge, case, trim length, velocity, powder charge, powder brand, primer, blah, 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 all your data, everything. Put that on a sheet of paper. Keep it on your computer. Now, as you modify things, remember to modify it in the computer, upload it to all your backup setups, and then pull the piece of paper out of here, print off your new data, and get it in here. And then as you change things, make notes annealing these things. So I keep all my numbers for my Aztec annealer, or amp annealer. keep all my numbers on a sheet here, and as things get changed or as things get updated, obviously this gets changed and this gets updated, and off and running she goes. And I have current pilots on hand, what I go for with my different cases, and you know, the whole thing. So the machine is currently set up to run the 6XC, or 6XC, the 45-110, and I need the number 29 bushing, which we screw in there, and I'm going to hit start for the Aztec, and I'm going to go run, yes, and I'm going to use last because that is the number that I was using prior to. I need to grab the shell holder out of the reloading press. Boy, slide this on, down inside, hit start. That case is annealed. Don't touch the top of the case. They're freaking hot. They'll burn the snot out of you. Ask me how I know. Here's another little tip for you. Color change. That color variation does not mean anything when it comes to cartridges being annealed properly. I have had the same batch of brass only have a color change in the top 1/8 of an inch. And then I've had stuff like this where you get a color change down, you know, 1/2 to 3/4. That doesn't mean anything. That is only how the brass is oxidizing with however clean or however dirty or whatever's coming out of the system, whatever's coming out of the metal right there at the point. That color change doesn't mean a darn thing when it comes to this thing being annealed. Trust the numbers. It did it right. And we are on count 2. Here's the other cool thing. So now I can ramble on, forget where the hell I'm at. And did I anneal that or did I not anneal that? Well, I have 2 that are annealed. It says I got 2 that are annealed. There's a 3rd one there, so evidently I didn't do that. So we anneal these cases, and we do this so that the neck is soft and it will expand better in the rifle chamber to seal off against gases. You don't have to do this. It's highly recommended. I have the tools, so I'm gonna, and again, you know, watching the fingers. Those things are bloody hot. And you can just reach around here and dink, shut that puppy off. I like to replace the cap, keep the dust. All right, so I've got my Lyman case trimmer. This one's already set up for, pretty much only use this thing now for doing anything straight wall case that I can't do. Pretty much only use this for straight wall cases. I have this is a Lyman electric case trimmer. This thing works awesome. I would say it's definitely not as good as, say, a Girard case trimmer, but a Girard's $400. This thing was $100. So, you know, when I get the money and when I get the gumption to buy a Girard, I probably will. But at this point in time, that one works fine. It does a good job. It's got some flaws. It's not as accurate. It doesn't deburr inside and out as you cut. Obviously, that's where the $400 is. And again, this comes down to, hey, we pay for these products to save us time and frustration. So break out the calipers. We're going to check the case. Overall length is 2 inches 9/10. 2 inches 9/10. 2 inches 900. That one there we don't even have to trim. 2 inches 9/10. Yeah, 2 inches 9/8/10, close enough. Thousandths of an inch. They're not exactly completely correct, but they're close. And yes, I know this was my case that didn't need to be trimmed, but it's also the right length for this. Little deburr there, and we'll see what that change actually affected. I could have went a little bigger. This is like 987, or excuse me, 887, 2 inches 887. So this will still be fine. I might have to cull that case later on. Large rifle primers, standard. And I was already doing this. This is already set up for the 45-110. I hand prime almost everything unless it's on the Dillon. And then obviously I'm using the priming feature that's on the Dillon. But there's no reason to run these things on a Dillon. These are just not, these cases are not conducive to being run on a progressive thread. This is a over the primer, under the powder wad, whatever you want to call it. Guys use newsprint, and they'll punch the, they'll slide a piece of newsprint into the shell holder and prime the case as they're shearing a hole in a piece of newsprint. They'll do that. I find this to be easier. This comes from Kenny Wasserburger's book. This is done because black powder does not require a huge amount of heat to ignite it. This is my V4, Auto Trickler V4. This is an FX120i scale. It measures to the milligram, and as I'm talking at it and blowing on it, and it's catching a little bit of a breeze coming through the door, it starts tripping out on its numbers. We're going to go to 102 grains of this. I got my Old Eynsford right here, and yes, I'm using a stainless steel pan. I just used this one. I cleaned it out the other day for loading some other ammo. We're going to get some powder in there, and then I'm going to measure out individual charges of 102 grains, plus or minus about 1/10 of a grain. Black powder does not have to be anywhere near as close as smokeless to get a velocity variation. You can be 1/4 of a grain off on your black powder loads and still be fine. So this little chingus here, this is a shot and powder measure for shotguns, and it has ounces and drams on here, which is kind of cool. It's an old guy, and it's adjustable, so it's kind of neat. I've got it set up here. This usually dumps, if you scoop it right, it dumps between 102 to 104 grains. So obviously we're going to double check it and watch it come up. 103. So take that off. And we put our, that should be probably right around 100. I just took a small grain off there too, so that charge weight's not going to be exactly right, but it was only one kernel, so I'm not terribly concerned with that. If this was a smokeless load and I seen a kernel of powder on there, I would dump the charge and start over, because that one kernel of powder would have been enough to screw up a load. That would be enough to change a vertical at 1,000 yards. I don't want to do that. 102 1/4. Again, I could have stopped there, been fine, but since we're trying to show how to do it properly, let's do it properly. 2/100ths of a grain or 20,000ths of a grain. I would call that good. Oh, here comes the drop tube. So I machined this thing so that it fits into the top of the cartridge case, and we want about a 6-second pour.
1/1000, 2/1000, 3/1000, 4/1000, 5/1000, 6/1000.
And about 6.5 to 7 seconds. And I give it a little tap, tap, tap right there. I lift up gently, and we're sitting about half, 3/8 to half an inch below the top of the case, which is about where you want it to be. So back on the scale, confirm our 0. No, we're not 0. It's trying. It's picking up a breeze. And if any of you guys are out there running stopwatches and you're going to complain to me in the comments, whatever. What I probably ought to do, just to show you guys, when you do your load workup, what you do is you take this case. This is out of Wasserburger's book. You take the case and you get yourself a nice stainless steel pan or Tupperware, whatever, and scoop this thing in there and get it dead level and go rake. And then dump it on your scale. Measure it. Make sure I didn't lose the wad in here as I'm talking with my hands. Do that 10 times to ensure that you get a good average. With Goex Olde Eynsford, Schutzen, Elephant Powder, the Graf and Son stuff, if they're still private labeling theirs, whatever. That is your powder charge to start the scale with, to start at. Because when you run it through a drop tube and you pour it over that 6 seconds, it's going to compact further and it's going to be down, 3/8, ½ inch from the top, depending on what your powder charge is. The caveat to that is when you use Swiss powder. Cases like these, 100 grain capacity, Swiss, you want to back off about 1.5 grains and start your load development from there. And the reason is that Swiss is a more powerful powder. So this case has about 102 grain capacity with my brass. This is why you measure your individual brass. These cases, I got lucky. These things all weigh within about 3 grains of each other. Kenny recommends separating your cases. I can't remember exactly what he said. I think it's like 5 or 10 or 15 grain increments. He separates all his brass that way. Well, all 300, just slightly less than 300 pieces of brass that I've got are all right around 240 grains. There's like 239, 241 grain weight for the brass. So hopefully, as I know this from shooting F-class, that weighing brass doesn't really change the powder capacity a whole heck of a lot, because you don't know where the added brass is. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. And that's my opinion. I'm not contradicting Kenny. Kenny's got more experience doing this stuff than me. Maybe it has more of an effect in black powder than it does in smokeless. I don't know, but we'll leave it at that. I'm going off of what he has said in his books, what he has personally told me to do, and out of my notes, so I treat it as gospel. I'm going to do what he's telling me to do without question until I find a better way to do it. And as much as I shoot this stuff, I probably won't. So anyway, that's your average. Say 102 grains is where you're going to start. And you're using non-Swiss powder. So you go 102, load up 3 to 5 cartridges. Go 102.5, load up 3 to 5 cartridges. Go 103, 3 to 5 cartridges. 103.5, 3 to 5 cartridges. And 104, 3 to 5 cartridges. Whatever you feel comfortable with shooting a group. And go out and shoot those three, and do a proper ladder where I'm not going to get into how to read group sizes. There's plenty of stuff on how to do that stuff. But what you're looking for is the least amount of vertical change. You can't disregard wind in your group size, but obviously try to shoot your group on a wind-free day, which is nearly impossible to do, but that's what you want to do for this stuff. So, and like I said, I will have a video of how I paper patch my bullets. We overshot by just a touch, and we're good. 101.98, I'll take it. And we are going to be using the Wasserburger wad stack. So, from Mr. Walter, or Dr. Walter Dr. Walter Mann's book, he recommends, or he came to understand through testing, that a lead bullet steers with its butt. If there's any damage to the base of the bullet, gas cutting, powder impaction, creating odd shapes, weird stuff like that, thinning coming off the back of the bullet, any of that stuff will destroy the accuracy of the bullet. So, here is the process. First thing we're going to do is a veg fiber wad. All this stuff comes from Buffalo Arms Company. You can get it from Buffalo Arms. You can get some of the stuff from Track of the Wolf. You can get some of the stuff from Midway. You can get some of the stuff from Brownells. I highly recommend Buffalo Arms. They're where I get my bullet molds from. They're where I get my black powder from. They are where I get everything from. So,
So what I did is I just took a vegetable fiber wad and set it on top of the powder. Now you're going to need a powder compression die. Rah. And my powder compression die happens to be one that I made, because I'm a cheap bastard. Well, to a degree. I'm a frickin' machinist, so machinist and a mechanic. So I don't bother buying stuff when I can make it. So you can do one of two ways on this one here. I'm going to seat the poly wad and the other wad, the felt wad, when we get done. But just to make things a little easier, I'm going to take a wooden dowel and I'm going to press this right down against the top of the powder, and I'm going to stop as soon as I feel the powder. I'm not going to do a compression on this just yet, because I want to feel where that is. Right there. And you can do this any way you want. You can figure out wherever the hell you want your, however you want to figure out where your powder compression is. On this load that Kenny recommends, he recommends about 380 thousandths, 3/8 of an inch of powder compression. In one of his notes that he wrote to me, it says 280 thousandths. I don't know if that's a typo or not, so I'm going to back this die off, and I'm going to run this thing up to full, and I'm going to turn it down, and I'm going to eyeball about 3/8 of an inch. You could measure that with calipers if you wanted to. There's our powder compression. Done. And I'm going to measure this. So we're at 535, 538. 535, 538. And we're right at 250. So that is 280 on the powder compression. So that'll be a good 280 test then. Oops. Dang it. So you gotta be careful. I'm gonna bash up the frickin' case mouth. There's those. Go ahead and compress these. You can buy a powder compression die from Buffalo Arms. They're about 20 bucks, 15 bucks, something like that. I can't remember. I had a spare die, and I just got a piece of material and threaded it and put a jam nut and another nut on top of it and a little TIG weld on there to hold it in place, and done. So there is our powder compressed veg fiber, 60 thousandths thick, done. The next thing we want to do, which is part of the Wasserburger wad stack, he developed this something like 20 years ago and did some changes to it to figure out the best powder compression and the best protection of the bullet you can find. And so I'm taking this is a 45 caliber, 60 thousandths Walter poly wad. And I believe these are LDPE, low density polyethylene. I don't think these are HDPE. Kenny says you can use either or interchangeably. Do not use a poly wad for compressing the powder, because the plastic will expand and it can bulge your case. So you don't want to do that. So now this doesn't go back in here. We're done. Matter of fact, watch this. We're done with this altogether. We don't have to use this guy at all anymore. We're not even going to use this for bullet seating, because these things are seated with hand pressure. I highly recommend, doing something like this. This has got everything I need in it for doing my paper patch bullets. I've got my sponge in here. I've got cards. I've got my cutting mat. I've got my little hole puncher for doing the under powder wads. I've got my patches pre-cut with my template in here. I've got a little cutting mat. I've got my sponge for wetting the patches. It's all there. And I've got the original bullet mold that was shipped, bullet that was shipped with my mold that I bought from
with the original mold that I bought from Buffalo Arms. This came highly recommended from Kenny Wasserburger. This is a 446 diameter, 545 grain money bullet. And it weighs out at about 135 grains with a 16:1 alloy, which is what I have learned to use and what I'm currently using. I have since melted down all my pure lead bullets. Everybody's, oh, pure lead is what you got to use with paper patch. No. Bullets, historically speaking, were as hard as, what did Kenny say, like a 10:1 alloy? I mean, they were bloody freaking tough. So, it's not necessary. So, wooden dowel on top. We're going to push the polywad down till it just makes contact with the veg fiber wad. In she goes, in she goes, in she goes. Next thing we're going to use, this is 1/8 inch fiber wads. I cut these 1/8 inch wool wads from Durafelt. You can look up Durafelt products on the internet. You can give them a call, send them an email, whatever. They will sell you a sheet, like, you know, great big sheet, like 4 feet, 12 inches wide of 1/8 inch thick wool that is the proper firmness for doing wads for black powder. And stuff's cheap. It's like $20 a sheet, and you can get like 5,000, like 5,000 wads out of, like, a couple feet of this stuff, and they're sending you like 4 feet, 6 feet of it. I can't remember what I bought. It was a huge piece. And it was cheap, and they ship for free too. So so we pop a wad on top of the poly wad, and this finishes what is the Wasserburger wad stack. The Wasserburger wad stack, again, is a 60 thousandths veg fiber wad with a 60 thousandths poly wad with a 1/8 wool wad, all stacked up in that order, using the veg fiber wad only for powder compression. Poly wad on top of that, hand seated. Felt wad on top of that, hand seated, which is what we're going to do. Hand seat, hand seat, hand seat, hand seat. Now, that's not going to leave you a whole heck of a lot of room there in that case. It's only got about 3/8 of an inch, and we can measure that. 357. 358. It's a nice number, 357. So it's close to 3/8 of an inch, which is all you need. Because these are bore diameter bullets. These are going to sit on the rifling and be inserted into the lands and grooves of the barrel when we do this. And these just hand seat, just like that. And this is how it was done back in the day. This one's a little snug. This is one of the ones that fell and hit the ground. So this one's not going to fly all that great. But again, this is just a demonstration for you guys. So if your bullets hit the ground like that and get dented, dinged up, out of round, whatever, toss that thing back in your melt pot and start over. There's no reason to do that garbage. So, and there we have. It's converted to use a 110 grain metallic cartridge firing a 540 grain paper patch bullet. It's got Vernier sights and double set trigger, all that crap. Yeah, there you go. Quigley. And that's it. That's how you do it. No crimp, no nothing. You do need to be careful that, because this thing will pop loose, which also brings to mind that Quigley used to carry these things in the movie on his belt upside down and pull them from his belt and load them into the gun. Well, proper load, you can't do that. And, I'll tell you why that was done. It's called Hollywood. Quigley shooting all the rounds that he shot out of that rifle in the movie is not possible in real life, because these things foul the barrel like you wouldn't believe, and you have to clean the freaking barrel after every shot. You have to run wet patches down your barrel every shot. The only way you can get away with using multiple shots, and like maybe 3 at the most in a row without cleaning your barrel, is if you drop this bullet diameter down by about 0.004 of an inch. Paper patch bullets do not appreciate being shot down a fouled barrel. The barrel needs to be absolutely as clean as possible for the best accuracy you can get. Like I said, I will do a video here on paper patching. I've got to cast up some bullets or strip the patches off a few and show you like 3 of them. It's super simple. I'll go over the paper. I'll go over all that stuff. So, but you know, that's it. There's nothing to this thing. How do you load development wise on this thing? Again, it's the half grain increments. Do your ladders that way, and then you can try powder compression. You can do variations in powder compression. Start off with something like this at about 3/8 of an inch. I still haven't figured out how they exactly come up with the number that they want to use for powder compression. You know, where do they start? Why do they start there? I don't know. I'm going off of what is in the reloading manuals for paper patch. I'm going off of that because I don't know. And then what I'm going to start doing is once I get a load that prints relatively well, and I hope, like, I'm looking for a 6-inch group for my first group. And that's absolute garbage when it comes to black powder. Kenny has a world record of just under 0.7 MOA minute of angle at 200 yard. He shot like a 133 something group at 200 yards, set a world record, and also won his class for smallest group that day. So if I can get this rifle to shoot a 2-inch group at 100 yards, I'll be happy. Because you have to take this thing into the context of the time. It's a buffalo rifle used for shooting buffalo. How big's a damn buffalo? Buffalo stand, you know, plains buffalo are freaking huge. The things stand, the hump on their back's about 8 foot tall, 6 to 8 foot tall, and these things they're massive, you know. So it's like a big wall of fur. It's kind of hard to miss. It's only in the context of today's shooting where we think about, you know, 1-inch targets or smaller, you know. Well, this is 1870s technology, and we're still trying to reuse. I mean, if I was looking for the ultimate accuracy out of a rifle like this, I wouldn't be shooting black powder. I wouldn't be shooting paper patched bullets. I would be shooting copper jacketed bullets, and I'd be using smokeless in a 45-70. I can get far better accuracy out of something like that, easier than I could this. That's not the point. The point is, this is a challenge, and this is bloody fun. And it's just kind of cool. It's historic, and you can't buy this stuff. You can't go down to Walmart and pick up a box of 45-110 paper patch ammo off the shelf. It doesn't exist. You have to make it. So this is decompression. This is therapeutic, you know. Grab a cup of coffee and come out and start doing it. And you see, it's not that much work. It's far more me yip, about this than actually doing it and trying not to get off on too many freaking tangents that I, you know, squirrel. And we're back. You know, I could say that the camera didn't warn me, but I'm sitting here looking at a hollowed out, right there, hollowed out battery signal on there, and then all of a sudden it goes red, and I'm like, oh, battery's going dead. No, that's like, no, this is fatal warning time. We're done. Camera shuts off. Good luck, sucker. So, again, in my video, front sight is covered. This is how I store it. Oiled leather, and this is to keep from having the front sight bashed about. When it goes into the sock, it tends to flip the little lever over the front sight, and then my sight inserts fall out, and those little things are impossible to find. And if you drop one in the desert, it's gone forever. You're never going to find it. So this is the military buttstock on this rifle, and that is just absolutely freaking pointy bits like you wouldn't believe, and that just absolutely sucks to try and shoot. And like I said, I am not a small guy, and how you're supposed to shoot this thing is you lay it into your shoulder this way. You don't shoot it like this in your shoulder, because that just drills you. You're supposed to put it against your arm and shoot it that way. You know, obviously it's unloaded, even though you can't see any daylight, but there's no cartridge, obviously. Brought it out with the lever open, so, and she's on half cock right there, good to go. But yeah, the pointy bits on this thing. Get one with a shotgun stock. Don't do this. You can order a Quigley with your initials on the side of the gun, okay? You can do that. That has a shotgun stock. You can do that. Why bother? And just, you know, yes, I got the movie gun, but damn, I should have listened to Kenny. So, anyway, I got to do some editing. This won't go up for a day or two. It is January the 28th, Friday. Let's pick this camera up just a touch. There we go. I want to thank some people that gave me some really good advice and went out of their way to help a fledgling shooter such as myself figure this stuff out. Kenny Wasserburger, for one, he's got a Sharps Rifle page on Facebook, primarily since he got sick and tired of dealing with the one of the other Sharps Rifle or single shot black powder pages on there. He calls bullshit like it's going out of style, and good for him for doing it, because there's so much misinformation out there, and there's people with opinions up the wazoo with zero real world experience. And like I said, a test is worth 1,000 expert opinions. That comes from Mr. Lou Murdoka, world champion bench rest shooter, who now does and has been doing testing for quite a long time for different manufacturers. That hits home bigger than anything. Ian Egbert, also on the Facebook thinger, Ohio resident, big time black powder shooter, educated me in paper and in reloading process. Him and Kenny are tighter than ticks, and they bounce information off each other like it's going out of style. There's just a tremendous amount of knowledge there. It's a whole bunch of people on that Facebook board that I can't think of their names right now, but those are the two predominant names that I could think of. That's it. Thanks. I'll have a video up with paper patch and Once Fired brass, the fire form stuff. So we're good. Bye bye.